Well, how did I deal with it? Writing, wrote a book, became a bestseller. I'll be speaking, incidentally, at Broadway, not Broadway, the Boulder. There's a place called Boulder here? Boulder Library, May the 20th. They made a documentary about me and about my fellows and all my comrades. So we'll be showing that documentary and I'll be talking to them. Anyway, writing, painting was a great help. Keeping occupied to the point of fatigue was another way to deal with it, but it wasn't a cure. This is the cost I'm talking about. This is the cost to the men who serve. I don't care whether it was the good war or the bad war or the what. I'm saying when men go out there, there's a cost involved. And we should all remember that cost because it never goes away. And there's not a cure for it. Humor helped a lot. Laughter and jokes would hide the fear. Let me tell you a little one about B-17 bomber was coming off of a bomb run with his entire group. He was straggling very badly because he had a couple of engines that had been blown out. And immediately as he came out of the target zone, 2 Messerschmitts dove on him. I took my wingman and went right straight after those Messerschmitts. Messerschmitt 109, if anybody's familiar with them. And as we got closer, the Messerschmitt on the right pulled off. My wingman went after him. I kept right after this guy because he was closing in on the bomber. And just as we got close enough where he could probably be firing, I was able to destroy him. Now at that moment, I was in a vertical dive. And I came down within 5 to 10 feet of the tail of that B-17. And sitting there in that back little, tiny little tail gunner sitting there. His face was as white as his eyes were bulging out of his head. Maybe his guns were jammed, I don't know. But I shot past him, and then all of a sudden I hear somebody holler out, "Hey, Doorknob, Doorknob." Doorknob was our code name. That was our kind of aerial identification. We were the Doorknob Squadron. I was Doorknob 5-2. But this fellow called out, "Doorknob, Doorknob, this is Fir Tree." Fir Tree was the bombers. He says, "Listen, we saw what you did, Doorknob, and we thank you. Thank you, thank you." He says, "I got to tell you, most of all, my mother thanks you." So that's what I mean by that little bit of smile is enough to carry you through for another mission. Anyway, as time went on, my wife is here, Natalie. My son is here. And Natalie and I will be celebrating our 62nd marriage. July, was it July the 2nd, Nat? I told you I do forget things. I better not forget that. Anyway, it's been a remarkable life, and she's been a very patient person because she's quite aware of the problems that I was faced with during this many years. And I had to deal with it at a time when there was no medical answers for it. Nobody there to help you. Nobody there to talk to.
There still isn't.
Like he says, and there still isn't. But this is a forum. This is a mic, an open mic. And here I am talking to you. And it's doing me and it's doing you a lot of good, isn't it? Anyway, being a victim got to a point for me before anything else. And I was afraid I was just wasting my life because there were so many times when I would forget where I was and what I was doing and concentrate on something else. So my answer to you is, since frightening memories will always remain, that was then and this is now. Eventually, I got some treatment. I got some psychiatric treatment. Working with a psychiatrist was the most help. I learned how to live between two worlds. By the way, that's the name of the documentary, Between Two Worlds, because that's one world, and as we stand here today, this is another world. And it was like going to a movie. I can visit that world because it's there in me someplace. It'll never go away. But I can always come back to reality, and you people out there are my reality. You got a problem? You can't bury it. It'll pop up and bite you in the rear end, for lack of a better word. Not long after the war, Natalie and I were having lunch at a sidewalk cafe. Two men behind me were speaking German. In an instant, the hair on the back of my neck stood up. I was drenched with sweat. I was back in Sicily, in a culvert, and it was night. I was standing ankle deep in water. And in the dark on the road above, I saw two soldiers sitting next to a huge tank. They were smoking and speaking German. Well, I couldn't let these things rule my life because those are the kind of things that kept popping up in my head. So the first thing we did was hire a German housekeeper. And I asked her to speak as much German as she wished. In a short time, the sound ceased to recall a frightening moment in my life. That particular moment was an escape from a German prisoner of war camp. So I was on my way back to where the British were, and it was that moment that I was so absolutely terrified. I couldn't let these things rule my life. That's why I hired that German housekeeper. Rick's got the right idea, an open mic. Get it out in the open, face it, write about it, talk about it. My father used to say to me, words that were so terribly important for me the rest of my life. You know, things happen. You think that's the end of the world. And he used to say, this too shall pass. And I'm here to tell you it has. It's there, but it's taken care of. And I invite all of you who have a problem to do something about it. I thank you very much for allowing me to address you this evening.